thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. This series has, it's been something new for us here at Bad Publicity, and we're just very happy that it's been well received. So right now we're getting into one of our second to last categories here, and this is going to be our Standout Nemesis card. There was a lot of good debate behind the scenes again on this one. And we tried to take a lot of things into consideration here because this game is very situational. And I just want to point that out, that this is standout card. This isn't the best card. This isn't, the most dominant, piece of villainry or trickery or just card in general in the game for this series, right? It is
villainry. I love it.
Right? This is a cooperative game. There's a whole lot of variables that can be in place. What I'm playing, what you're playing, how many people you're playing with, and the time that it comes out. So Corey, we, both of us kind of hashed this out, and we did talk about a whole different situations. And Standout Nemesis for us, it was tricky because it wasn't just like a card in a deck. This is a lot of things that went into thinking this through. This is for us. Standout. Correct. For Bad Publicity, and what we've played with. You might not have had the same experiences as us, but from our perspective, we are the academy on this one, and sometimes just like the Grammys got it wrong this year and they didn't include the weekend, sometimes you may feel that we got it wrong, but that's when you put your stuff, articulate your thought down in the comments below. Corey, any other things to add here? And you can, when you're done, take it away and reveal this thing.
Yeah, not much, again, other than there was like a lot of debate. This is one that I think we narrowed it down to two like really strong candidates, and big things we looked for in like what qualified for the Standout Nemesis. Some of it was almost like that fear factor of like the ones that you're most terrified of actually showing up in a game, and then like the impact and stuff they have once they've arrived, and maybe even after you remove them. How have they changed the villain deck and everything going forward? And so that was kind of like where we kind of got locked in, and we really came down to between two choices that we condensed before we actually got to the winner. Yeah, and as you mentioned, and it was like really good, like spirited debate. Like we got to a point, I think, where we each lobbied for one, and we kind of went back and forth through different scenarios. And then finally, like I think, like Jameson threw an argument. I was like, "Oh yeah, no, that sounds way worse." That's way more terrifying. And so our overall winner ended up edging it out, but it was a very close contest. So I guess let's get to it.
Yeah. Let's also, sorry, I just had a thought that we should say that when we talk about Nemesis, we're talking about the actual Nemesis itself. We're not putting any kind of weight behind or into our equation on the full kind of Nemesis set of cards.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's some filler cards in there to balance things out, and that wouldn't be fair to one set to another, one Nemesi to another Nemesi. So this is just on the get in this box with us and just look at the Nemesis cards. Don't be telling me about schemes. Don't be telling me about other little cards that get moved into the encounter.
That's right.
All right. Let's just have a discussion on Nemesis. Corey, over to you.
All right.
Envelope.
And then that's right. And then just to add, we all know that none of us are really happy to see any Nemesis arrive. When a Shadows from the Past is resolved, everyone at the table just gets a little sad because they know the game's difficulty is about to ramp up considerably. But our selection and our decision for the Standout Nemesis from Psycho 1 goes to the Taskmaster from Black Widow's Nemesis set. Now, yeah. So again, things we mentioned was like fear factor was one of those. And Taskmaster is very interesting in the fact that like his power level, one kind of depends on like when he shows up in the game, like initially when he arrives, and especially like for Black Widow, because her whole play style is getting like all these setup cards and all of her preparations and everything like that. He can be a really scary character whenever he drops down, and if you're not able to like quickly deal with him, he can hit you like a freight train. And that's even just if he attacks, let alone if you're in a position to where, you know, you're an alter ego and then he has an insane scheme because he's getting buffed from all of the supports and upgrades and things that you have laid out, which is pretty wild. But the other thing that makes Taskmaster really, really nuts is that even when you defeat him, you now have this ticking time bomb. It's like a live grenade boost card that is now, you know, going into the deck at some point that can just wildly swing if it gets revealed as either an attack or a scheme boost. So I think that design on how it really carries like how he buffs when he's in play to also kind of providing that same assistance if he comes up as a boost. So you don't like get away. Sometimes, you know, you get some of those villains where you're like, "Ooh, we revealed this Nemesis as a boost. We got there. We made it, guys." But Taskmaster's like, "No, I'm not a fun guy to deal with, regardless of how I show up in this game." And so I think that puts some really cool like pressure and some thought and things you now have to think about and worry whenever he shows up. And I feel it's also like really fitting. Like it's cool for the character because Taskmaster's a cool villain, right? You want him to be a really awesome nemesis when he shows up. So that was our decision. Jameson, I don't know if you have anything else to add. I kind of went on a bit, but
no, I think the one thing I want to touch on there is again I don't want to drag it on and just reiterate everything you said because I mean I fully agree with it. I love the fact that he is that almost direct, you know, yin to yang to what you are doing. In that, you know, like you touched on Black Widow's setup and putting out upgrades, you know, and stuff like that. You know, and there's also going to be other, you know, upgrades and stuff that other people are doing as well and stuff like that. Right. So, I mean, I know that doesn't affect you, but if it gets drawn and stuff like that, so it's a very common, you know, thing to mess around with in that stuff. Right. Yeah. So I think there's never going to be a time whatever hero is trying to fight Taskmaster or that draws the Taskmaster, you're pretty much in a world of hurt. And also to that, the exact phrasing on this card is then duplicated as a boost, and that is ridiculous to me. I mean, you know, to me, this card, this boost action here is worse than some of the other cards we've seen with 3 boost icons, right? Like,
right. Because there's a big thing on it too is that it also will add to scheme. And that's what I think makes it really, really interesting is because sometimes those boost effects, you only have to worry about it on the attack, but the fact that this could be a wild swing on a scheme, you know, and sometimes when you, as a group, you're trying to go through, it's like, all right, well, if he schemes for this, we're probably fine. We've got this much time. We can let the villain get away with a little bit this turn. And then all of a sudden Taskmaster's like, oh, hey, you've got, you know, 4 upgrades laid out. I'm going to be a +4 boost to the scheme of this guy. And that's going to like wildly escalate what's going on. And that's a little terrifying.
Yeah. To have it, I really feel like the Taskmaster, gets you from every angle. Like there's just no easy way to be prepared for him to come out, because like, what are you going
to do? He knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
And he's so.
Like, are you supposed to, like, not play your upgrades? Are you supposed to, you don't know how it's going to be when, like it said, is boosting either scheme or attack. So you're just getting it everywhere. You're getting it as that boost. You're getting him as that villain. And then 4 is pretty, like, 4 is a good base meat to be on this guy. So I just love him. And I also love him, the design of this card, how it matches that stuff so thematically to Taskmaster's ability in the comics, where he's can just mimic someone else's attack and just understand them and so quickly. This card was very, very, very well designed. Like we said, this has nothing to do with the rest of his suite, because the rest of his suite is pretty blasé. So Taskmaster, I love him so much as a character, and I'm glad to actually acknowledge him this way as the standout nemesis. Oh my God, such a great card. Some of the, I mean, there is some other ones that we've, we did look at. I know from my perspective, I don't play the character a lot, but I know that She-Hulk, I looked at Tatiana. I mean, coming in at 6, and her matching ability on the attack equal to Tatiana's remaining hit points. I mean, that's very that is
resilient, durable, frustrating.
Yeah, right. But there are ways to deal with that, right? Like, gang it up. Yeah. Like, once you just pile up on her, she's going to adjust. Right.
Yeah.
And that's very one-sided. It's like, I just have to worry about the attack of this. Killmonger kind of neutralizes Black Panther's abilities.
Yeah, but I think in our discussion, to kind of unveil a little bit, the other candidate that was like really close and almost edged out, and was that we both kind of lobbied as the Loki Nemesis was the other one, just because it has that really obnoxious ability of like, I think I've KO'd him, I think I've got him off the board, and then he's just like, nope, just kidding, I'm still here. And while that design is great in the sense that it's very thematic, because you just can't get rid of that guy. He just won't leave you alone, and it's obnoxious and annoying. Taskmaster just edged him out because Loki is more of the like obnoxious, annoying, like pestering villain that you just can't get rid of, while Taskmaster can just show up and just dumpster you. So yeah,
Loki can be handled, right? Like you said, like he's more of that bee sting or somebody poking you in the arm, 106 times in a row, right? Like, it's not going to hurt you, but it's just going to be so annoying after a while. And Taskmaster's not like that. Taskmaster's just, comes out of nowhere. So one thing I do want to touch on too is I think a lot of people, the way that we talked about, if you've watched this kind of throughout, I think people would have thought, Corey, that Baron Mordo would have been our choice because of the mechanic that he utilizes with the the resource symbols.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to kind of answer that to anybody that says, what about Baron, and why aren't you guys so high on that that mechanic anymore? And isn't it so fun to have anything there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it came up, but at the end, I think like the tool set with the hero, there was enough things like really mitigate and not be that big of a deal. And again, I think like the fear factor is where, there's like the whole like unnerve, like which villain, which nemesis are people at the table like really more worried about or afraid of coming in. And I think out of our groups, the two that kind of hit our top just felt like they just raised higher than even like that little trigger effect and things that Mordo did.
Yeah, to me it was just that was a cool. It's always going to be a cool mechanic, but the power of each one, like you know, your ability to take all of the above there. Yeah, okay, when that hits, it sucks. But like,
Right.
if you're stunned or confused or take 2 damage, sometimes like that stuff is not going to be game changing enough. And he was fat. You know, he's got a good size hit points on him with 2 boost, but it just overall being in that Doctor Strange deck and some of that stuff playing around in Strange's ability to manipulate those stunned and confused cards, you are kind of
sometimes it's good for you.
Yeah, you're kind of enabling him, right? You're enabling the Doctor to you know, you're putting those pieces on the board to be manipulated. So, you know, there's a lot of, you know, again, situational awareness that we kind of talked about and things like that. But again, Taskmaster was just very well designed, and there's really no way around it other than to not play your cards. And why would you do that in a card? Like, you know, why would you handicap yourself?
Right.
Like, you just have
you've got to. You've got to do it to beat the scenario.
Yeah.
So, and I said it's good because, again, like another thing too is like some Nemesis, again, based on their timing. Like if you get them early, you're like, okay, I can deal with this, and then he's not much of a problem going forward. Sometimes I had some problem stuff in their kit, but whatever. But I think the fact also that Taskmaster is like really cool in the fact that like his character himself may not be as strong early game because you may not have as much setup out, but then you have the threat of his boost coming up more often. Or if he shows up late game and you have really good setup boards, he can come down and like really surprise you with some crazy stats because he's going to look at, especially like, you know, Black Widow with everything she gets set up and laid out on her board. You know, you're looking at a villain that can just hit you super hard, or again, scheme and just put a ton of markers on, you know, down. But it's cool. It was cool, and that's just, again, ultimately why we decided to pick it as our standout card.
Yeah, he is. He's not only a great villain in the comics and a great Nemesis character. He transitioned very, very well to this game. Love him. Signed, sealed, delivered. Let me know what you think about our pick. You know, put some good discussions down there. Challenge Corey on some of this stuff. Challenge me on some of this. And thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate you. We hope you enjoyed this series. We have one left.
That's right. One episode after this, and that is going to be our finale, is our standout villain from Cycle 1.
Hope you're having a good 2021. Because this should be out by then.
Yeah. All right.
Here we go.
Later, guys.
Take care.